If I asked you to picture the godfather of the modern absurd, you know, the writer who basically invented the psychological depths that Dostoevsky would later mine,
Right.
and a guy who wrote about Kafka-esque bureaucratic nightmares, like a full 80 years before Kafka even picked up a pen, who comes to mind?
Well, I mean, most people would probably guess a name that carries that massive universal weight, right? Like Shakespeare or Tolstoy.
Exactly. Someone universally recognized as a pillar of world literature,
Hmm?
but the actual answer is Nikolai Gogol.
Yeah, Gogol.
And it's wild because for most of us in the West, if his name rings a bell at all, he is mostly remembered just as the guy who wrote a really weird story about a walking nose.
Which is, I mean, it's this bizarre historical amnesia.
Right.
We live in a world that is completely shaped by his literary descendants, but the architect himself is just, well, he's often totally forgotten.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring the life of this comic genius, and we're basing this on Boris Kriger's book, Keys to Dead Souls, Gogol and the Philosophy of Impossibility.
It's such a fascinating book.
It really is. We are going to look at a man who single-handedly invented the Russian novel, tried to save the world with a single sentence, and then died at 42 after starving himself and burning his own masterpiece.
Yeah, it's a heavy, heavy story.
It is. So I invite you to just step away from the noise of modern information overload for a bit. Join us in 19th century Russia to uncover Gogol's philosophy of impossibility.
And, we'll see why his ultimate failure might actually be his most profound success.
Right. So to understand that catastrophic crisis at the end of his life, we have to look at the terrifyingly absurd world he built at the beginning of his career, right?
Absolutely. He wrote these famous short stories set in St. Petersburg that, well, they look shockingly like our modern reality.
Oh, completely. Like The Overcoat.
Yeah, The Overcoat. It features this low-level copying clerk named Akaki Akakievich.
And just that name alone.
I know. The name itself is a masterpiece of characterization because in Russian, Akaki Akakievich sounds like a stutter. It's like a repetitive loop.
Which mirrors his existence perfectly.
Exactly. He doesn't create anything. He just copies documents all day.
Right.
And he is so devoid of an inner life or friends or passions that his entire capacity for desire gets poured into just acquiring a new winter overcoat.
And he actually gets it. Like, he has one day of absolute joy, but then he's mugged in the dark streets and the coat is stolen.
It's heartbreaking. And he tries to get help from a very important person in the government.
And he's just yelled at, right?
Yeah, he's yelled at, he catches a fever, and he dies. But then Gogol totally breaks the genre. Akaki comes back as a ghost.
Just haunting the city and ripping overcoats off the shoulders of generals and wealthy officials. It's amazing.
It is, but the nose is where the absurdity reaches, like another level entirely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the nose is wild.
It really is. So a minor official named Kovalyov wakes up, checks the mirror, and his nose is gone. Just a smooth, flat patch of skin.
And the brilliance of the story is the total lack of explanation, right? Like, the nose doesn't fall off due to illness.
No, not at all.
It isn't cursed by a witch or anything. It's just gone.
Just gone. And he goes out into St. Petersburg looking for it. And he actually spots it stepping out of a carriage. But, and here's the kicker, the nose is dressed in the uniform of a state counselor.
Okay, we need to clarify what that means in 19th century Russia, because it's the absolute crux of the joke.
Right. So Peter the Great instituted the table of ranks. It basically organized everyone in the military and civil service into a strict numbered hierarchy.
So a state counselor is what, rank 5?
Exactly. Rank 5. It's
Yeah.
essentially the equivalent of a major general or a top-tier government executive.
Wow.
And Kovalov is only rank 8. So his own nose vastly outranks him.
Which completely changes the dynamic. Kovalyov isn't having a medical or, existential crisis about losing a facial feature.
No, not at all.
He is socially terrified to approach his own nose because it has better paperwork than he does.
Right. It's intimidating him with its uniform.
It even goes into a cathedral to pray, and Kovalyov is too submissive to then come back to his face. And I mean, this feels wildly relevant today.
Oh, completely. What's fascinating here is that Gogol isn't just writing fantasy. He is revealing the hidden architecture of a bureaucratic society.
Yeah, like how our digital avatars, our verified profiles, or even algorithmic credit scores sort of outrank us now.
Exactly. He is showing us that identity is merely an assigned administrative category. You are what your documents say you are.
If a nose wears the uniform of a state counselor, society treats the nose as a state counselor.
Right. The horror isn't the supernatural event of a walking nose. The real horror is how easily society accepts the absurdity.
They don't even blink.
They really don't. The characters just swim in this bureaucratic hallucination without ever questioning its emptiness.
Because the paperwork is more real to them than reality. So if society reduces human beings to administrative categories, what happens to the interior, like the soul?
And that leads us right into Gogol's magnum opus, Dead Souls.
Right.
This is a comic novel built on an incredibly intricate and cynical premise. To appreciate it, you really have to understand how the Russian economy worked at the time.
So lay that out for us.
So the government conducted a census every few years to count the male serfs. These were known as revision souls.
Oh.
Landowners had to pay a poll tax on every serf listed in the most recent census. But people die, right? Between one census and the next, a landowner might lose 20 serfs to disease or old age.
But they still legally had to pay taxes on those dead souls until the next census updated the records.
Exactly. Which sounds like a terrible financial burden for the landowner.
Oh, absolutely. But then the protagonist, this swindler named Chichikov, realizes there's a massive loophole in the system.
Yeah, the government also allowed landowners to mortgage their serfs to the state loan bank for cash.
Wow. Okay.
So Chichikov realizes he can travel around provincial Russia and offer to buy these dead souls from landowners for pennies.
And the landowners are thrilled, obviously, to get the tax burden off their hands.
Right. And then Chichikov legally registers the purchases, and suddenly, on paper, he owns hundreds of serfs.
So he can take that paperwork to the bank and secure a massive fortune in loans. It is a brilliantly dark concept.
It's genius. And the title, Dead Souls, it carries this massive layered weight. You have the literal deceased serfs being traded on paper.
Yeah.
You have the spiritually dead landowners who are selling them. And then you have the overarching theme of the dead soul of Russia itself.
So true. And Gogol builds this, taxonomy of spiritual death through the landowners Chichikov visits.
Yeah, they aren't evil in the cartoonish, mustache-twirling sense. They are just profoundly empty.
Right, like Manilov, a man entirely made of agreeable pleasantness but completely devoid of any convictions or original thoughts.
Or Korobotchka, who is so trapped in rigid literalism that she doesn't find it strange to sell dead people. She's only worried she might not be getting a good market price for them.
That part is so funny.
And then there's Plyushkin, a wealthy man who has contracted his entire humanity into hoarding literal garbage, just pacing his rotting estate in rags.
Wow. And Kriger highlights this incredibly telling detail about Chichikov himself. He carries a mahogany traveling box.
Oh, I love this detail.
It is perfectly organized. Visiting cards are sorted by rank, theater tickets are filed by date, transaction papers are stacked flawlessly.
Right?
There isn't a single personal human item inside. His soul has been externalized into this transactional filing cabinet. Oh, wait, let me stop you right here because I have a serious question about this framing.
Okay, go ahead.
If we are talking about characters plunging into dark, morally bankrupt actions, they are cheating the system, hoarding wealth, treating human beings, even dead ones, as commodities.
Yeah.
Isn't this exactly the same territory Dostoevsky covers? When I think of a Russian novel about moral decay, I immediately think of Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment.
Right, plotting a murder for money.
Exactly. It feels like the exact same psychological landscape.
On the surface, it might seem similar, definitely. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, Kriger points out a fundamental philosophical divergence between the two.
Okay, what's the difference?
Well, Dostoevsky's characters look into the abyss. Raskolnikov commits murder, and he suffers agonizing, crushing guilt. He has a profound moral consciousness.
Because he knows he's done something horrific.
Yes, because he is conscious of his damnation, he can actively seek redemption. He suffers because he has an interior life.
Right.
Gogol's characters have no abyss. They are morally unconscious. They don't suffer because they don't even realize they are damned.
Oh, wow. They are entirely hollow.
Exactly. They are hollow. You cannot have a moral crisis if you do not possess an interior life to host it. Dostoevsky's characters are damned, and they know it. Gogol's characters are damned, and they don't.
That is chilling.
Kriger argues that Gogol's vision is actually far more terrifying because of that total lack of awareness.
To be completely corrupted but feel nothing but mild satisfaction about your filing system.
Yes, that's exactly it.
So what does this all mean? If everyone in the society is completely hollow, incapable of inner movement, where is this whole story actually going?
That's the big question.
Because the plot is moving. Chichikov is riding his carriage from estate to estate, but spiritually, everyone is standing completely still.
And Gogol realizes this too. At the very end of Volume 1 of Dead Souls, he interrupts his own novel. The comic irony just drops away.
And he delivers one of the most famous passages in literature, the Troika passage.
Right. Chichikov is fleeing town in a troika, which is a carriage drawn by 3 horses.
But it stops being a normal carriage ride, doesn't it?
Completely. Gogol transforms it into this mythic, physics-defying vision. The troika is hurtling forward at an impossible speed.
The road is smoking, the horses are practically airborne, just leaving all other nations behind in the dust.
And the narrator actually breaks character. He directly addresses the nation, asking, "Russia, where are you flying?"
And famously, the question goes entirely unanswered.
Yeah, the carriage just keeps flying into the void.
You know, when I read that, it didn't feel like a 19th century problem at all.
No.
No. It feels like algorithmic optimization today, like the 21st century tech boom.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, we have built these incredibly powerful AI systems and social media algorithms that are moving at blinding speed. They are optimizing for engagement, maximizing clicks, generating infinite feeds.
And leaving old methods of communication in the dust.
Exactly. But there is no moral steering wheel. The system is incredibly efficient at moving forward, but it has no understanding of where it's taking us or what the final destination is.
Right. We are in the carriage, moving faster than ever, and nobody's actually driving.
Yes.
That captures Krieger's analysis perfectly. Gogol's Troika is not just a burst of patriotic pride or a moment of pure pessimism. It is a profound diagnosis of modernity.
It's the terrifying paradox of magnificent, unstoppable momentum, completely divorced from self-knowledge or purpose.
The beauty of the movement is inseparable from its blindness. The machine is working flawlessly, but the people inside it are spiritually unconscious.
But Gogol didn't want to just diagnose the problem and walk away, right? He couldn't live with that unanswered question.
No, he couldn't. He had originally modeled Dead Souls on Dante's Divine Comedy. Volume 1 was meant to be the Inferno.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He intended to write Volume 2 to show these characters waking up, entering purgatory, and eventually finding redemption. He wanted to steer the Troika.
But he hit a brick wall.
He spent a torturous decade trying to write that sequel. And he failed.
Yeah.
But he didn't fail because he lost his talent. He failed because of a structural impossibility.
Because you cannot write a redemptive arc for a character like Chichikov or Plishkin.
Exactly. We just discussed how they were built completely without the inner capacity to change.
Yeah.
To suddenly give them a deep inner life so they could repent.
It would destroy the very comic architecture that made them so brilliant in the first place.
Precisely. You can't make an empty shell experience a profound moral awakening.
So the fiction couldn't do what he needed it to do. It couldn't save the soul of his country. So because he hits this wall with his novel, he pivots entirely. He drops the comedy and publishes a nonfiction book.
Yeah. Selected passages from correspondence with friends. He tries to directly instruct Russia on morality and religion.
And he ends up defending the existing social order, including harsh, oppressive systems like serfdom, claiming they are divinely ordained.
He basically tells everyone they should just accept their lot in life and be morally pure. And the cultural explosion that followed was massive.
I can imagine.
The progressive critic, Vissarion Belinsky, published a ferocious open letter. He accused Gogol of betraying his art for political reaction, of acting as a propagandist for a corrupt state.
And just to remind you listening, we're taking absolutely no sides here, just reporting on the intense historical backlash. Because on the other side, conservative elements eagerly embraced the book.
Right, they tried to claim Gogol as their champion.
So his deeply personal, desperate spiritual plea was just totally consumed by the political culture war of his day. Both factions used him for their own agendas.
Completely missing the fact that the book was a cry of spiritual desperation from a writer who felt his art was failing him.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If fiction wasn't working, and his nonfiction was tearing his reputation apart and starting a culture war,
Yeah.
why couldn't he just accept being a legendary comic writer? Like, why destroy his reputation and his friendships just to become a preacher?
It's a great question.
Why not just write more funny stories about walking noses?
This raises an important question, and it gets to the absolute core of Krieger's thesis, the philosophy of impossibility.
Okay.
Gogol came to a devastating realization about the limits of language and art. They are magnificent tools for describing the surface of reality.
Right.
They can vividly capture the emptiness of a dead soul, but no arrangement of brilliant words can actually resurrect that soul.
So art can diagnose the terminal illness, but it has no power to cure it.
Precisely. Gogol discovered that the gap between human capacity, which is art, and human aspiration, which is divine salvation, is completely unbridgeable.
The words will always fall short.
Yes, he demanded that his writing serve as a prophetic, saving force. When he realized he was only a writer, the disparity broke him. For someone with his burning spiritual demands, being an entertainer was an unbearable failure.
Wow. And once Gogol accepts that words are inherently useless for his ultimate goal, he takes this philosophy of impossibility to a terrifying, logical conclusion.
Yes, in his own physical life, he falls under the influence of Father Matthew Konstantinovsky, who was a very rigid confessor.
Right.
Father Matthew didn't plant these fears in Gogol, but he validated the darkest suspicions Gogol already held.
That his imaginative art, his brilliant comedy, was a sinful distraction from God.
Yes, a product of sheer vanity.
And this all culminates on the night of February 11th, 1852. Gogol is living in Moscow. He wakes his servant boy, Semyon, in the middle of the night and orders him to open the stove.
It's such a haunting scene.
The boy begs him not to do it, but Gogol ignores him. He throws the manuscript of Dead Souls Volume 2 into the flames. He watches a decade of his own work burn.
He physically destroys the narrative of fake redemption because he knows it's a lie. He destroys it because it fails to meet the impossible standard of absolute spiritual truth.
But the destruction of his art was only the first step.
Right. Gogol then turned this philosophy onto his own body. Kriger describes this as hunger as theology.
Hunger as theology. That's intense.
It is. Just as language was an obstacle to the divine, Gogol began to view his physical body as a barrier.
So he initiated a systematic refusal to eat.
Exactly. He shrank his physical form, refusing medical treatment, refusing food, trying to aggressively strip away the physical world to reach the spiritual realm.
And 10 days after burning the manuscript, he died of starvation.
Yeah.
Looking at this through a modern lens, it is incredibly confronting. We exist in a culture that is obsessed with completion and productivity.
Oh, completely. We are constantly pressured to build our personal brand, to ship the product, to maintain the content treadmill.
Right. An unfinished project is viewed as an ultimate failure of discipline. But Gogol's choice to look at his unfinished work, declare it fundamentally inadequate to the truth, and just stop. To literally burn the manuscript, stop speaking, and stop eating. It is a complete rejection of everything modern society values about output.
And Krieger's book asks us to rethink Gogol's death in light of this. It is very easy to write it off as a tragic psychological breakdown.
Sure.
But viewed through the philosophy of impossibility, it is a profound ethical choice. Rather than publish a forced fake narrative that he knew was intellectually and spiritually dishonest, he chose fire.
Wow.
His silence at the end of his life wasn't an absence of speech. It was the most honest statement he could possibly make.
When he finally reached the absolute limit of what language can do.
Exactly. Silence was the only truth left.
It's a staggering journey for you listening today. We started in the bizarre bureaucratic hallucination of St. Petersburg, where walking noses outrank their human owners and paperwork dictates reality.
Yeah, we unraveled a massive tax fraud scheme trading on dead serfs, exploring a society entirely stripped of moral consciousness.
We rode the physics-defying troika into the void of modern optimization. And finally, we watched a comic genius push the boundaries of his art until the art itself broke, choosing silence over a comfortable lie.
We live in a world that produces billions of words a day, right? Where everyone is constantly posting, speaking, and trying to be heard.
So, building on Gogol's legacy, we want to leave you with this final thought to ponder on your own.
Ask yourself, when you finally reach the limit of your own understanding, do you have the courage to stop producing content? Can you leave the narrative unfinished and let your silence speak the truth?
Because sometimes when the world demands a neat, comforting answer, the most profound thing you can do is refuse to provide one. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.